The Fairbairn Sykes dagger, one of the most recognizable knives in the world and synonymous with the word fighting knife. It is the predecessor of many modern fighting knives and in some cases still competes against its descendants. The Fairbairn Sykes dagger is, after all, the original spy knife. This is the knife life, and today we are delving into the Commando knife. It's time to get covert. World War II, the greatest conflict in world history. It also did not start well for the Allies. The quick capitulation of France and the narrow escape at Dunkirk set the stage for the creation of the Fairbairn Sykes knife, or FS knife. But before we get into that, let's clarify what the infamous Commando dagger is. The FS knife is reminiscent of medieval and Renaissance blades. It's a slim, double-edged dagger, sharpened on both sides, and it generally ranges in overall length from 10 to 12 inches. Probably the greatest giveaway of its identity is the metallic-shaped handle that looks like a Coke bottle. The grip is usually made of brass and can be either bare or coated. The blade itself is a through-tang construction, and a pommel nut is used in order to secure the grip. Various knurlings and textures for better grip can be found on various blades. The FS knife also sports a simple crossguard to protect the hand, usually made from thin bar stock cut into an oval shape. While both edges are sharpened and can cut, the primary purpose of the FS knife is to thrust. It is thin enough to almost be classified as a stiletto and was specifically designed for Fairbairn and Sykes' fighting style. Original sheaths for the FS knife also stand apart from other fighting knives as well. The sheath, for the most part, looks like a standard leather belt sheath that can be carried on the belt, but it also has two sets of tabs protruding from the main body of the sheath. These tabs are included so that the sheath can be easily sewn onto clothing for better concealment. The Fairbairn Sykes is probably the most quintessential British knife, but its story begins on the opposite side of the world, in Shanghai. Shanghai in the early 1900s was one of the roughest cities on the planet and rife with crime. Incidentally, this is where the two designers of the FS dagger learned their trade. Both William Ewart Fairbairn and Eric Anthony Sykes served in the Shanghai Municipal Police during this time. Fairbairn served in a red light district in Shanghai and supposedly was involved in hundreds of street fights. His body was reported to be covered in scars from these encounters. Fairbairn was also the creator of the Special Anti-Riot Squad for the Shanghai Police. Naturally, Fairbairn became highly interested in martial arts, training in both Western and Eastern martial systems. Both would influence the design of the FS knife. Fairbairn was one of the most schooled individuals in combatives, especially in the Eastern systems. Fairbairn was one of the few Westerners to train in judo at the Kodokan school in Japan during this time, for example. Fairbairn would write numerous manuals on combatives and created an entirely new fighting system he dubbed Defendu. Sykes, on the other hand, was much less of a public figure and very little is actually known about him. Even Colonel Rex Applegate, an instructor for the American OSS and a later collaborator with Fairbairn's, didn't really know Sykes' background. Sykes reportedly served in World War I, but there's no real official record of this. Sykes did work as an importer in Shanghai, where he became a volunteer member of the Shanghai Police and was eventually placed in command of a sniper unit there. A 1943 confidential report states that he was employed in supervising weapons training and unarmored combat during the war. Sykes' involvement with the FS dagger is clouded, and what his contributions were to the design remain really unknown. He is an enigma forever tied to the blade as a namesake. The first ideas that would lead to the FS knife can be found in the Shanghai knives. These are a series of knives that were made in the Shanghai Police Armory. They were never produced as issue weapons, but rather seem to have been more of an experimental hobby. There were many individuals who were involved in the design of these blades, but most notably Fairbairn and Sykes. The size and shape of each of these knives varies, but they are all double-edged daggers with a simple crossguard and wooden grip. Some people consider the Shanghai daggers as the first prototype of the FS dagger, but probably a better way to think of them is as an earlier essay into knife design that would lay the foundation for the FS knife. The creation of the true FS dagger begins with the Nazi invasion of Poland. The quick fall of France left England in a precarious and isolated position, protected only by the English Channel. Britain quickly realized that their conventional military tactics were not viable in this situation, so the British military adapted new tactics, those of the hit-and-run attacks of the commandos. At the outbreak of the war, both Fairbairn and Sykes returned home and volunteered for service. Both were in their 50s, and they were denied combat postings. Instead, they were assigned as trainers, specifically for the new commando units being formed. In accordance with commando training, what was needed was a knife that could be produced in large numbers, thrust very well, was long enough to reach the vital organs, but still be small enough to be concealed during clandestine missions. The result was the Fairbairn Sykes commando knife. In 1940, Fairbairn and Sykes contacted the British War Ministry about a combat knife design, which was then approved and moved forwards to a trial production. Fairbairn and Sykes were referred to the Wilkinson Sword Company in London. 3 prototypes were produced, and the design was approved by the War Ministry to begin mass production. These were the first pattern FS knives. First patterns are quickly identified by 2 features. The first is the S-shaped guard. The second is the distinct flat ricasso. Each of the first pattern FS daggers were handmade, and thus significant variations exist between blades. Each of the guards were hand-hammered to shape, resulting in each guard having its own unique curvature. The bevels were hand-ground, resulting in uneven grind lines and offset edges. The size of the ricasso was also subject to significant production fluctuations. The brass grips for these blades were nickel-plated. The Wilkinson Sword Company trademark was stamped on one side of the ricasso, and the FS fighting knife was stamped on the other. Every original first pattern was manufactured by Wilkinson Sword. The first order of 50 knives was made by the Special Operation Executive, or SOE, in January of 1941, only 2 months after Fairbairn and Sykes first approached Wilkinson Sword. The first pattern saw their first action during Operation Claymore during the raid of the Lofoten Islands in Norway. Their success and that of the commandos resulted in the scaling up of both. By the end of 1942, there were 12 commando units, as well as the newly formed Special Boat Section and the Special Air Service. It is unknown exactly how many first pattern FS knives were made, but at least 1,000 were produced. It wasn't possible to match the growing demand for FS daggers when each one was handmade, and changes therefore had to be made. But before we get to that, let's discuss the curious story of the 3-inch guard first pattern. Supposedly, the very initial guard of the FS dagger had a 3-inch guard instead of the normal 2-inch guard. The guard was later shortened to 2 inches as the larger guard had a tendency to snag on clothing. There is little documentation to support this, and upon review of the surviving purchase documents, the only knives that could have been made with the 3-inch guards were the initial 3 prototypes and the first SOE order of 50 knives. All following knives of Operation Claymore are confirmed to have 2-inch guards. You'll find people on both sides of the aisle arguing for and against the authenticity of the original 3-inch pattern. So, take a look into it yourself and then let me know what you think. Is the 3-inch guard legit? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're at it, check out our first sponsor for the knife life, Kyoku Knives. Not only do they make some pretty nice Japanese kitchen knives, but they also make this nifty knife carry bag. It's ideal for the cooking enthusiasts among you, but recently I've also been using it to protect my historical blades. Check out their store description below and use this promo code to get 10% off. Alright, enough promotion and on to the second pattern. In order to keep up with demand, the FS pattern was simplified in both design and production. Thus, the second pattern FS knife was born. The S-guard was disposed of in favor of a flat guard that could be stamped from bar stock and didn't require hand fitting to each and every single individual blade. The blade itself was drop forged and then partially machine ground. This process essentially eliminated the ricasso of the first pattern and left only a small flat triangle at the base of the blade. Finish grinding was still performed by hand. The first of the second patterns still had grips that were produced by turning down a brass blank on a lathe, but this was quickly replaced by rough casting the grip and then finishing on the lathe. Errors from this casting process are not uncommon in wartime knives and take the form of grooves and flat spots on the blade. While the modified production methods greatly increased uniformity in the FS knives, some blades may vary by about an inch in length, for example. Which companies and how many often can't be determined because these outside suppliers didn't mark their blades. J. Clark & Son from Sheffield is the only other company aside from Wilkinson Sword to mark their blades, and even them sporadically. You'll find second patterns with a variety of finishes. The first finish used by Wilkinson was the polished blade and nickel-plated brass grip of the first pattern. Wilkinson quickly changed over to a new all-black finish. The blade was flame-blued and the brass grip chemically colored. The third and most uncommon finish was the polished blade with the blackened grip. There were a number of grip variations as well from different companies. The beaded and ringed design was a special of Joseph Rogers from Sheffield. Another was the roped and ribbed design. However, these modifications made up a small minority of the number of second patterns that were produced. Tens of thousands of second patterns were made, but this still didn't meet the requirements of the war. The FS knife would have to change again. While the second pattern improved manufacturing time and scale, there were still material issues. Brass was a valuable commodity and needed for other uses towards the end of 1942. Additionally, the knurling on the grip was a time-consuming operation. The third pattern did away with the knurled brass grip and replaced it with the far more economical zinc alloy grip with concentric rings. Like the second patterns, the majority of the third pattern knives made were a full black finish. Additionally, the grip was shortened by 1/4 of an inch. It is estimated that about 2 million of these knives were made. Interestingly enough, even though the third patterns comprised the majority of FS knives and could be considered the quintessential version, neither Fairbairn or Sykes were involved in the redesign of the third pattern. Fairbairn himself did not approve of the shortening of the grip and believed the ring-style grip could result in the blade rolling in the hand. Due to its widespread use, the FS dagger was obviously an effective blade for close combat, but it had its drawbacks. FS daggers are prone to breaking at the tip due to their slim profile. The shoulders of the blade were typically cut square, creating stress risers so that breaks at the ricasso were also common. Soldiers in the field were prone to using them as tools, levering open boxes, and other everyday tasks which the FS dagger was ill-suited to. This was exacerbated by the poor quality steel available in wartime Europe. Additionally, FS daggers have relatively steep bevels, good for a stiletto-style blade, but degraded the cutting capability of the FS knives. The bottle shape of the grip also led to the blade rolling in the hand in spite of the knurling and didn't help orient the blade. There are stories of commandos attempting to cut a sentry's throat with the flat of the blade. These drawbacks did not go unnoticed, and improvements on the FS dagger evolved. The V-42 dagger of the Devil's Brigade was one example, and Fairbairn later teamed up with Colonel Rex Applegate to create the Applegate Fairbairn knife. Both will have their own videos in future. In spite of its issues, the FS dagger has lasted far past World War II. The FS knife continued to serve with the British into the Falklands War. Other countries bought large numbers of surplus FS knives after the war to outfit their troops, and to this day, service members are still likely to encounter an FS dagger during deployment. For those interested in learning more about FS daggers, check out Roy Shadbolt's website, The Fairbairn Sykes Fighting Knife. He has a bunch of great articles and was generous enough to provide many of the photos in this video. I'd also say check out these books as well. I'll have links to all of these resources in the description below. Until next time, stay safe and keep living the knife life.